everybody, Sean from Movie Assault here, and it's time for another episode of the October 2023 version of the Halloween 15. This is episode number 3, and this time out I wanted to take a look at a movie from 2005, Mortuary, which was directed by Tobe Hooper. This film is on this compilation, this DVD compilation I have, and you'll see it is located right there. So I do own a copy of it. It is on a disc with 3 other movies, so it's not exactly what you would call super high quality print, but I do own it. Tobe Hooper, of course, is more famous for movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Poltergeist. Some of his later work is probably lesser regarded, maybe even lesser known. And I mean, if you ask 5 horror fans to name 5 Tobe Hooper films, I don't think that Mortuary will be at the top of anyone's list. Maybe somebody will remember it. But it was an interesting experience watching this movie. It's about a family, the Doyles, who are traveling to a small town in California. The mother, who is played by Denise Crosby, her name is Leslie, and she has recently been trained as a mortician. Her husband has recently passed away, so she is on her own with her 2 kids, Jonathan, played by Dan Bird, and Jamie, played by Stephanie Patton. And they are traveling to this small town in California. She's about to take a job as the town mortician at a recently, I guess it was not so recently, abandoned funeral home that has reopened and is looking for a mortician. I don't really know the business model because she's the mortician. She's living in the funeral home, but she had to accept the job from somebody, so you never really meet the owner. But you do meet this creepy real estate agent, and I'll bring him up in just a minute. So anyway, the kids see this house, and they can't believe the terrible quality that it's in. It's in ramshackle shape. It's just horrible. The front yard is just mud, and across the front yard, there is a cemetery, adding to the creepiness of this house. Jonathan, who I don't know how old he is, but he is probably out of high school, maybe college age. He goes into town and he tries to get a job, and he meets a girl named Liz, and she's played by Alexandria Ari, and her friend Grady, who's played by Rocky Marquette. And they begin to fill Jonathan in on the history behind his house. And apparently there was a man there, or I guess a boy, named Bobby Fowler, who was abused and disfigured, and he ended up murdering his parents, and now he's rumored to live in a crypt in the cemetery that is in the front yard of the house. He's also seen around town lurking in the shadows and eating out of garbage cans. And then everybody, Leslie, Jamie, and Jonathan, they all start noticing weird things taking place in the house. I won't say what they are, but lo and behold, they're sort of tied into this Bobby Fowler legend. This is an interesting movie because it starts out really strong. The first act is really good at world building. You get this realistic dynamic between the family members. The townsfolk who come to the funeral home to introduce themselves all have this sort of off-kilter, humorous weirdness about them. The real estate agent that I mentioned earlier, he laughs at everything, even when it's not funny. I mean, he'll just say something and he'll start laughing, and it's sort of unsettling. The sheriff, I guess he's the sheriff or the town police chief, comes by, and he's just fixated on graveyard babies. Kids going into the graveyard across the street and fooling around and making graveyard babies. It's really weird. But then the second act of the film sort of shifts gears a little bit, and it becomes more interested in the relationship between Liz and Jonathan, and it kind of switches into sort of this unusually funny mode. Maybe I'll say unusual and funny. There's a scene involving Leslie's first embalming session that sort of has a slapstick feel to it. Feels kind of out of place, but the tone is so off in this movie, it's just odd. And then we get to the third act where sort of the shit hits the fan and the movie just turns on a dime and gets really weird. And it almost feels like the producers ran out of money because there's some CGI effects in the final act that look like they would probably be rejected from a 1995 PlayStation game. They're really bad. And then the story just takes this strange turn, and it just doesn't really congeal into a good movie. The script, which was by Jace Anderson and Adam Girash, it really doesn't know what to do with the goodwill that it's earned in the first 30 to 40 minutes of the film. And it just sort of squanders it. And the conclusion is kind of, I want to say it's kind of like they threw everything into the conclusion, trying to make it like super climactic. It just kind of falls on its face and doesn't really resonate with the rest of the film. So Mortuary was an interesting attempt at a horror movie, but it just sort of falls flat. And I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10, not one of Tobe Hooper's finest hours. So there you go. That's my review of Mortuary from 2005. Stay tuned for episode 4, where I will be reviewing Splatter University from 1984. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy.